Again, indulging our taste for generalization, or at least my taste for generalization, we ask, how do we find the equation of a line through x1, y1 and x2, y2 in symbols? Well, we just follow the same procedure that we did before. We just keep our wits about us and write down the symbolic expressions that correspond to the numerical expressions we used earlier. So the run from x1 to x2 is x2 minus x1. The rise from y1 to y2 is y2 minus y1. So the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. No surprise there. The slope from x1, y1 out to our point xy on the line is going to be y minus y1 over x minus x1, obviously. So we have this slope has to be equal to this slope if this point is going to lie on the line. So we write again what we call the slope equals slope equation, which reads y minus y1 over x minus x1, this slope, equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, this slope, because the slopes have to be equal. And there is our slope equals slope equation. Now, you've probably never heard of a slope equals slope equation. You've heard of point-slope form and point-point form of a straight line. It all gets very confusing, and I've never met a class where a majority of people could remember those formulas because they're simply asked to memorize them. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to look at a picture and see where the formulas come from and what they really mean, instead of just memorizing meaningless formulas and forgetting them shortly after the test. So we have the slope equals slope equation, y minus y1 over x minus x1 equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This comes from a simple picture. If we just multiply by x minus x1, we get this y minus y1 equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 times x minus x1, which you might recognize as the two-point form or the point-point form of the equation of a straight line. You don't need this. You need this. This is a picture. This is a bunch of symbols to memorize. It doesn't go with a simple picture. You can draw a picture of this, but it's not as simple as the picture that you have for the slope-slope form, so why complicate your life with something complicated that you don't understand? Okay? Now, of course, if you're given the slope, instead of y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we'd simply write y minus y1 over x minus x1, the slope from this point out to xy, equals m, if you already know m. And that should be pretty obvious. So everything comes out of the simple picture that we get for the two-point form. Again, if we have the 1 point and a slope, the picture could look like this. Here's our point x1, y1. Here's our point xy. Here's our slope, y minus y1 over x minus x1. This slope equals this. Okay?